So it's October 4th, 2006 in Barrie, Canada. At around 6:15 a.m., Elaine Campione picks up the phone to call the police. Except she isn't calling the emergency number of 911. Instead, she calls the Barrie Police Administrative Line. The equivalent for us in the UK, James, might be like calling 101 instead of 999.
Okay.
These are calls for like non-emergencies. Someone picks up the phone. Barrie Police Service, how can I help? Now, the operator on the phone might typically hear questions about, I don't know, ongoing cases or lost property. What they almost certainly weren't expecting was for Elaine to calmly say, quote, "My children are dead." When the operator asked for more detail, Elaine told them she did not know what happened. When the police arrived at the house, they were a little taken aback by Elaine's behaviour. On the phone, she says her daughters are dead, but she seems quiet and calm in person. The officers ask her where the children are. She tells them, "They're dead. They're in my bed." When entering the room, there they are. Serena, aged 3, and Sophia, just 19 months, lay on the bed. They look as though they've just simply fallen asleep. Serena in a purplish nightgown, Sophia in Tinkerbell pyjamas. They both have a necklace and earrings on, and they've had their hair brushed neat. There's a rosary placed on them, and a family photo album sits between them. They've been positioned to hold hands with stuffed toys surrounding them like a shrine. It's clear that a lot of time and effort has been spent arranging this horrific tableau. It's observed that one of the girls has a noticeable bruise on her head, and both of them have bluish lips and their skin a bluish grey colour. When the officers check the girls over, they're cold. It's clear they've been dead for a while. Further inspection of the house shows a pile of folded clothes on their beds, and pinned to the bedroom door are burial instructions. Why would there need to be burial instructions? Elaine is immediately arrested on suspicion of murder. Rough start, huh?
One thing that struck me is that the calling of the equivalent of 101 to none or whatever is she doesn't see this as an emergency. It's something I've taken, and clearly as they've got there and seen this tableau, this arrangement of everything, this to her isn't an emergency. This is something that's been very planned, premeditated, something that happened I don't know how long ago. She's pretty chill about all of this.
That's a really interesting insight, actually. In all of these episodes that we've done, I really don't think I've given enough credit to police officers that have to walk in on such horrific things like this. It reminds me of the officers that walked in on, remember Catherine Knight skinned her fiance and positioned him on the sofa. The guys that literally pulled the curtain back on the door frame, which was actually his skin hung from the door frame. And there's a bunch of them quit their jobs.
I mean, yeah, so would I.
Totally valid response. Sometimes it's just too much. And I think, sometimes we ought to give officers more credit for the shit that they have to walk in on. Officers search the house for evidence and discover a video camera. The most recent recordings were of the little girls in the living room just being kids, playing, watching TV. All the while, Elaine, who's filming, is ranting. She's gone through a messy divorce with her ex-husband Leonardo Campione, and accusations have been flying around. One of them is that the house Elaine is living in with the children is unkempt, that the girls live in squalor and are not being looked after correctly. Elaine is showing the home in the recording, demonstrating that it is a well-kept home and that the girls are happy. The video then cuts to Elaine, who is visibly distraught. She has the camera set up facing the sofa, which she sits on, crying.
Recording this because Leo and there, are you happy? Everything is gone. You wouldn't give peace. You wouldn't tell the truth. I begged. You even had Stacy not believing me, telling her I had to sign papers when I didn't. I went to victim witness to get the truth, trying, begging everyone the truth. How you beat me for 3 years behind closed doors, beat me when I was pregnant with Serena and Sophia. You didn't care about our babies, you didn't care about me, you cared about yourself. all you did was hurt us. And you can't surrender an idea that you could actually have my children. God believes me, and God's taking care of them now. They're protected by God, thank God, and thank Him. Because there's no way I could have them with you. You're a hideous monster. The things you used to do to me. I still have horrific nightmares all the time because of you.
So it's clear to me that there's been a breakdown of a relationship, obviously, but he obviously sees things. If he's saying this house is unkempt, like there's something wrong here, and she's outright denying it, even though I'm assuming there's video evidence that sort of supports his claim that the house is in a rough state, she's mentally unwell.
This woman is like, she's having a moment. If I could try to be, I don't know, as polite about it as possible. Yeah, she's having quite a time right now. I mean, Elaine goes on for several more minutes on an absolute tirade of despair about how much she hates her ex-husband Leo and how the little girls even hate him because they told her so. The video cuts again, and this time with the same backdrop, but it's evident it's now morning, and Elaine takes to the sofa again. She starts the recording saying, quote, "I tried to overdose and it didn't work." There's a radio playing in the background during the recording, and Elaine is actually very quiet at the start, which makes her very difficult to hear and understand. But she's so much calmer than the earlier recording. And at this point, she's actually slurring her words. And I think it's fair to assume that this is due to her attempted overdose. I think she's still quite groggy from a lot of it. In it, she blames her ex-husband Leo again, saying, quote, "I don't even know what to say to you. I just wish you had left us completely and totally alone."
What has Leo done wrong?
Well, we're about to find out.
Okay.
As far as the police were concerned, this was enough of a motive and evidence to charge Elaine Campione with the double murder of her daughters Serena and Sophia Campione. Their theory was that Elaine had so much hatred for her ex-husband Leo that she wanted to punish him in such a way that he would never forget. So she killed the thing most precious to them both. She then tries to end her own life to be with her daughters, hence the burial instructions on the door.
That makes sense. So the burial instructions were for whoever found the bodies.
Obviously, we know that her attempted overdose fails, and then she calls the police herself and is arrested. I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, right? A woman hates her ex-husband, maybe a messy divorce. She hates him so much that in a moment of madness or whatever, she kills the daughters to punish him. And it sounds, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this was, a pretty open and shut case. But of course, there's a reason I have told you all of this at the outset. What I will say straight off the bat is that Elaine absolutely has killed her children. There's no twist here, okay? But what I want us to try and explore in today's episode is whether or not Elaine was in her right mind when she killed her two little girls, because that's the crux of the case in court later.
Well, my initial reaction is no. Changed my mind.
Now, this episode should be the very essence of sort of our mantra of our whole podcast, that we never justify why people do what they do, but we always try to understand them. So let's find out a little bit more about Elaine, her ex-husband Leo, and what their life was like before this dreadful morning.
Okay, let's do it.
There's the mantra.
That is the ethos, isn't it? Context.
Yes, context would be a third.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, unfortunately, there really isn't much on Elaine or Leo's early life. So,
Oh, great.
yeah.
Well done, Ryan. You just set us up and then immediately disappointed us.
Both of them appear to have had a relatively straightforward upbringing. Elaine came from a rural part of Canada in New Brunswick, and by the time she was 20, having finished community college, she'd moved to Ontario for work. After a few years, aged around 24, 25, she meets Leonardo Campione in the year of 2000. He was a few years older than her at 29. Now, sadly, there really isn't much I can find on how they met. This is mainly because most of the information we have on this case come from court records and articles covering the murder of the girls in 2006, so they're not really that interested in going into detail about how they met, which is sad for us context nerds.
Yeah.
What we can say for certain is that Elaine and Leo got into a relationship, and it seems to have been a whirlwind since they married very quickly and moved to Bradford, Ontario. Now, that isn't unusual. Many people tend to have longer relationships today, but it's not unusual in the past for people to get engaged and married sort of, fairly soon, a year or so afterwards. It's not uncommon. It just seems to be more of a more modern phenomena that we have very long relationships and long engagements before we get married now. But do not be fooled. The speediness does not infer a happy marriage. On the surface, they seem like an ordinary couple, but friends and family started to notice cracks. Comments on their compatibility were made often. Leo was an outgoing, sociable guy. Elaine seemed to be the complete opposite. Very quiet, definitely an introvert. Neighbours often commented that they never saw her smile when she was out and about. Now, being slightly different to one another is not a negative. There is a reason we say opposites attract. A relationship grows when the people involved grow with it. Our partners can help us try new things in a safe space, meet new people, visit places you've never thought you'd go. The key to this growth is a want to grow as a person. If you're stubborn or lack the ability to take on new things, there is the potential for a relationship to stall, or one partner will grow without the other, and then resentment begins to grow instead.
I've seen it happen to many a couple. I also find that when two people who are the same get together, and if they're both not very outgoing, it doesn't even have to be like extroverted. If they both just don't want to try new things, that can become stale very quickly. But they also don't do anything about it. And then, like 20 years down the line, they're just sat with this person who they don't really like anymore, but they're just there in this situation. And I think that's equally as fucked.
Yeah, it's that whole I love you, but I'm not in love with you kind of mentality. Now, Serena Campione was born August the 8th, 2003, with Sophia following later in March of 2005. Now, if there's one thing I've learned from the Jeremy Kyle show, it's that a child does not fix a rocky relationship. Look, neither of us are parents, so we can't speak with any experience, but from what I have heard, having a child is incredibly fucking stressful, especially early doors, and especially when it's your first and it's all new to you. Like the pressures of keeping this thing alive. I can't even keep a cactus alive, a plant that is notorious for not drinking any fucking water, and I've killed one.
I actually had a moment earlier today, which was really weird. For some reason, like, I think I was scrolling Instagram, TikTok, whatever you do, and there was this guy, or was it a guy? Yeah, it was a guy he must have been like 32, and he had his first kid when he was 16. And he's like, my
Ooh.
life is so great. I've got a 16-year-old at 32. And I was like, that's 2 years older than me, and you have a 16-year-old. I genuinely, like, took a shiver to my spine. I couldn't imagine raising another kid in my, like, current state. I don't feel ready. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sounds horrendous.
No, I totally understand. So, a cousin of mine my older cousin is a year older than me, and his only son is just going to start secondary school in September. So he's 11 going on 12. He'll be 12.
Each their own.
Yeah.
I think some people are genuinely just natural parents and fucking pump them out. Like, if you're good at it, you're good at it. I just think for me personally, I think I want kids in the future. I don't know. But I also just know that I can't have them right now because that would really fuck my life up.
Well, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's that whole thing. Yeah, we've decided we don't want to do that anytime soon. That's not to say that it may not happen in the future, but we just got other things that we want to do and prioritize. I think you see that a lot with the younger generations and whatnot. Many of them prioritize other things. We've had the fifth heat wave of the summer this year. They're saying this will be the coolest summer we have for a very long time now.
That's the thing. Like, do you want to bring a kid into this world? Like, the world is not getting any better, and also that kid's going to be a drain on resources. We're kind of running out of water already.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it's one of those where people tend to have more children when their life is more put together, when things are slightly easier, and when things are harder, people evidently we're seeing numbers are dropping where people are deciding I can't afford to do this.
I forget who said it, but it was on a panel show. I don't know his name, but I've seen the clip. You might have seen it. And he said, like, do you know how hard you have to mistreat a mammal to stop it from reproducing? And I was like, that's so interesting. Because maybe we are, because our generation, I think, gets looked down upon from, like, especially like the older generation now being like, why aren't you married by this age? Why haven't you got kids by this age? And it's like, why? Like, why would I?
Yeah.
I don't have the money. I don't have the time. It's weird. I don't know. But then I see other people with kids and I'm like, well, that looks great. But then obviously I only see the good parts.
Yes. Yeah. It's that whole uncle vibe, you get to hand them back kind of vibe. Yeah. You only see the good stuff. Right. So let's jump back in here. We know that Elaine and Leo's marriage is rocky and that children do not help rocky relationships. Elaine's paranoia intensifies and her mental health declines further. She was having intense delusions, believing that she was being followed. She believed people were trying to take photos of her daughters, which bred a fear of her daughters being taken away, and she even believed that people were trying to kill her. Then, in summer of 2005, the marriage was effectively over. Elaine left the family home with her two daughters. She'd run away to a woman's shelter in Barry, claiming that Leo had been abusive towards her, making an official complaint around September or October of 2005. Elaine made the claim that Leo had been repeatedly abusive during their marriage, which continued while she was pregnant with Serena. She also claimed that he struck Serena on the head at one point too. Elaine also had photographs of bruises that were used to charge Leo. He was slapped with a restraining order, and worth noting too that Leo vehemently denies everything that he was accused of, and it's important to mention that the charges will be dropped, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
We, of course, don't know what actually happened behind closed doors. One thing I will speak on is how difficult it can be to live with someone who has quite serious mental health concerns. As someone who has had mental health issues since the age of 17, from troubles just motivating myself to the more extreme ends, I know that in the past my behavior has affected relationships. Um, while it's easy for us to say that a partner should be supportive of their loved one when going through a lapse in mental health, at the end of the day, they're still only human. There's often only so much that a person can put up with if the behavior is consistent and ongoing. That goodwill and patience can wear over time, leading to a drop in sympathy. Sometimes the supportive partner needs help too.
It's a fine line, isn't it? Because partners should be there for each other. That's, I think, rule number one, isn't it? But then also, like, they have their life to lead as well, and they're not your nurse. Like, they can't just wait around and be that for you. Like, I always find that if in a relationship you're having to mother someone, something's gone wrong somewhere along the lines. But it's not fair. And also, I would find that if you are the person who is like down, suffering, whatever's going on, like, that's completely fine. It, like, not, life isn't a straight line. Life is up and down, up and down. But it's, for me, the issue is when people have no desire to help themselves. And I'm just like, please, like, be aware that, like, something's not right here. I'm not asking you to get better. Like, I know things aren't easy, and I say this to myself, someone who's struggled with stuff. But, like, you have to take steps to make things better, or, like, at least try, because no one, a partner can help you with that. They can give you options. They can do things. But if you're just sat there day after day, being like, this is shit, I'm never going to do anything with my life. Like, at that point, what do you do if someone keeps slamming a door in your face?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I also get how tough it is when you are there at your lowest. It is seeing a way out is nigh on impossible, but there is ways out. Like, they exist. I know, I've been there and I've seen it, and I'm sure you've got the same. Like, there is a light. Just you've got to walk towards it. But not in a death way.
Yeah, you do. I do feel for the partners that support their loved ones when they go through hard times. And reading that paragraph, I struggled to write it because I was like, am I putting the onus on the person who's going through something to, like, pull themselves together and make sure that their partner doesn't have to suffer, blah 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 blah. But then I suppose, having been through similar sort of things myself, and Jenna being there for me at some of my darkest days, um, you know, I always apologized during those moments. And she was always so supportive and being like, "No, it's okay, it's fine. Like I'm here for you and stuff." But I've also been around my mental health since I was 17, so I can acknowledge a lot of it and start to pull myself where I need to be to start to get help in some ways and start to understand that if you have no concept as to like how to manage your mental health, or if I'm having a low, or if something has triggered me, like even if you're unable to identify your triggers, um and you just have a consistent behavior pattern going on, it must be really difficult for a partner to keep that going. Now, having said all this, I'm not trying to paint Leo out as some sort of saint here. Elaine and Leo are clearly no good for each other, but I wouldn't be surprised if Leo's behavior towards Elaine did worsen over time. Um, when Elaine left the women's shelter, she actually stayed with Leo's parents for a period of time, which meant that Leo had to move out. Because remember, when they split up, Leo was accused of abuse. He had to move out of the family home. He went back to his parents. But when Elaine came out of the Women's Institute, she went and stayed with his parents and he got kicked out again. Now, during this time, it was noted that Elaine's mental health continued to deteriorate. She became convinced that Leo's family were out to get her, despite them having her live with them to support. Elaine became convinced that the mafia were out to get her and that Leo's family were working with them. Why did she think the mafia were involved? Because Leo's family were of Italian descent. That's how easy it can be for like someone who's effectively broken to just make connections.
Yeah, I am starting to feel for a bit here. Like, clearly there needed to be some sort of intervention or like actual professional help.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. She also developed an irrational fear of colours, at times refusing to let her children touch anything that was red or black. And at her worst, she believed that she was being watched by aliens. This is not a well woman. Elaine's mum came to stay with her when she finally found an apartment following the shelter. She stayed with her for 3 months, which to me shows that she really did need support. And, the mum knew that mama's instinct. She just knew that her daughter needed some help. Now, the mum saw how erratic her daughter was getting. At one point, Elaine finds out that Leo has a photograph of his daughters since he's not allowed to see them yet. Elaine goes absolutely ballistic. She can't stand the fact that he has a photo of them. And the only way I can try to understand her thought process is that she's already convinced that people are out to steal her daughters from her. And I wonder whether she looks at that photograph as sort of an equivalent of stealing a part of their identity.
Uh, Yeah, yeah, I guess. I need to be careful with the terminology because I don't want to sit here and diagnose someone. But like, it's clear. I don't know how to say that. It's clear that nothing is too far fetched at this point in terms of her belief of what the world is. So that photo being an extension of the family is very believable.
Yeah, yeah. Now, this photo moment seems to have been the straw that broke the camel's back. In October of 2005, Elaine is admitted into a psychiatric ward for 7 days. Her daughters are in the care of her mother while she receives treatment for what her defense will later say was postpartum psychosis. Remember, 2005 is honestly only like months ago she gave birth to a second child.
Yeah.
Now, the thing for me is, it's clear that Elaine has not been treated for the actual issue that she has, because as soon as she leaves after those 7 days, she begins to turn on her own mother, accusing her of trying to steal her children from underneath her. Then another stressor comes into Elaine's life: the divorce. Leo and Elaine go through a messy divorce. Elaine is defiant in her accusation that Leo is an abuser, and since there's a restraining order on Leo, they can't communicate anything in person. All of this has to go through lawyers, who Elaine then begins to suspect as well. Because when they're passing on information from him, they're like, well, you're clearly working with him.
I don't. I don't know how to get out of this situation.
No, no, it does seem horrible. It does. She's pushed away everyone close to her, unknowingly or not. She's just pushing everyone away because she's seeing monsters in the shadows where there are none, potentially. By the spring of 2006, Elaine is admitted once again into a psych ward, this time with an overwhelming sense of impending doom and still believing that people are following her. While she's away, the state actually looks after her children this time. but they give them back to her when she's released. Interestingly, it seems that Elaine is aware to some degree of how bad her mental health is, because she reaches out again asking for help. So she's been admitted twice, released twice. No one seems to have really pinpointed what the issue is or looked after it very well. And then she calls a third time. She's actually called asking for help now.
I see where this story's going, and it's going to end in a conversation about how the system has failed massively.
Instead, she's given a number for a crisis line and told to see her doctor. That's the level of help. Like I say, she's called a third time now, and it's like, just here's a crisis number if you really need it. Here it is.
We'll get into it now. The first time I ever went to the doctor for mental health problems, I was given a pamphlet and just told to go on my way. What the fuck? Like, it just doesn't make sense. The amount of conversations I have with people, this is 2006. We're 20 years later, and I don't think it's any better. The amount of friends that I've had who have been going through things, done things, and like, I'm very open about like telling people they need to go to therapy. Like, if I think therapy is good for you, I will tell you. And like, a lot of friends have sort of taken that on board. And they go and they'll ring up the NHS. And like, oh yeah, we'll get to you in 6 months. 6 months? People could be dead. Like, what are we doing?
I will admit, I'm very fortunate. So, I remember the first time I had to go to the doctors for mental health issues at 17, I had to get my mum to call because I couldn't bring myself to say what it was. And for the first 5 minutes in that doctor's office, I just sat in silence. I didn't say a word. I could not vocalize what was going on. And that was, what was that? That's 15 years or something ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm now fortunate enough that that same doctor's practice actually has a mental health practitioner on site. So
Right.
I don't speak to an actual doctor anymore. Anytime I've had an issue, I've got a mental health practitioner who understands me, knows me. And, when I call them, I don't have to go through the whole cycle again of telling someone what's going on. They have an idea.
That's good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I will admit I'm quite fortunate in just, it just so happens that my doctor's practice has that, but there are many others up and down the country who just don't have that.
I hate talking bad about the NHS because I think the people largely who work there do a fantastic job. They're just underfunded, understaffed. It's just, we need to be pumping a hell of a lot more money into this because it's basically a fucking epidemic, isn't it?
It's so important though, isn't it? We're talking about mental health because it's so important to this episode. I think if the right help was given at the right appropriate time, then I think we could have avoided a tragedy. So anyway, this help that Elaine is given is useless, right? Because by June of 2006, Elaine attempts suicide by trying to overdose on pills. She's taken to hospital where she stays in there for a month before being released again. Now, there is a reason for telling you about all of Elaine's admittance to a psych ward and hospitals. I am in no way using this to paint her out to be a bad mum or a danger to her kids at this point, because she's not. The reason I say it is because at no point are her children ever taken away from her care. Like, after every admittance, her children are placed back in her care. And again, I'm not saying that Elaine can't look after her children. She evidently can. However, she clearly needs more help than she's receiving at this time. And I think she's being failed here. She has immediate family, such as her mother, who can help. There's also Leo's parents who have demonstrated in the past that they're more than happy to help as well. Regardless of what Elaine would have thought about it, surely the most appropriate option would have been to place the children in the care of their grandparents so that Elaine could be given better support rather than consistently releasing her and then giving her children back, which clearly is a stressor for her because she then becomes immediately protective of them.
Every time that she's released, is she being signed off by the doctors, being like, she's fine now, this is all good? Or is she sort of leaving of her own accord? Like, what's happening?
I don't know. I what I'm imagining is there's no official like she's okay now. I wonder whether they're more seen as like respite. She's been given time away to de-stress, relax, have an actual rest. And then, after that, because you got to think about it, when she's in that sterile environment, all those stresses are sort of taken away from her. Even her children are not there. And after a couple of days, you start to turn those, like, you start to unwind and sort of the coil spring starts to soften and and they're like, "Oh, Elaine's back. She's feeling better." You know,
Yeah.
clearly the 2 weeks away has helped. Off you go.
This is why I think house visits are important, especially when kids are involved, because there was a story. I remember I used to work in the news. I don't anymore, thankfully. But there was a story of this guy who, this wasn't mental health related, but he had a young son, and the guy had a heart attack and died in his house with his young son, and that young son then starved to death because no one checked on them.
Oh,
So if this woman has had suicide attempts with very young children, like that to me is then a possibility. Do you know, there should be house checks from a mental health practitioner.
100%, 100%. Yeah, that is a massive. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. This is a woman who has had suicidal attempts in the past. Why would you give them to very young children who need to be looked after and not have? Oh my God, yeah, good point. Now, listen, look, having said all this, I'm not looking to have children taken away from their parents, right? Especially their mother willy nilly, right? But I do think in this instance, the appropriate sort of move would have been to have had the children put in the care of the grandparents, and Elaine got more help. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let me know what you think. The other issue with her being admitted so often is that Leo then begins to use this as a weapon to attack Elaine's character. There are claims that she is an unfit mother, that her children are living in squalor and are not being fed properly. This doesn't seem to be the case, but it doesn't help in furthering Elaine's disdain for Leo.
Leo's not helping, is he? Like, you can clearly see that this is a woman in distress, and you're piling on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems that they're unable to put aside any hatred for one another for the benefit of the children, and I do kind of see it, right? Leo thinks that she is mentally unfit to raise his two daughters, and he may have a point since Elaine thinks people are out to steal them from her, and that they're all accompanied by the mafia and aliens. But the thing is, Leo is clearly a stressor for Elaine. Just him existing is a huge strain on her well-being. Not That's not going to change anytime soon, of course, right? He's not going anywhere. He's a massive part of her life now, whether she likes it or not. They decided to have children with each other. But she has accused him of something terrible, which he absolutely denies. And this has resulted in him seeing his daughters on supervised visits. So, from his perspective, he's been wounded tremendously, which means that he lashes out at Elaine, which then causes her more stress and anxiety. And so the cycle continues.
Yeah, it's he shouldn't be. Obviously, he is causing her a lot of distress, and he shouldn't be doing that. But then I see what you're saying. From his point of view, his kids are in the care of someone who he deems to be unfit, while he probably deems himself to be fit to raise them and isn't allowed to.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, on the supervised visits that he's having, it was noted by one of those supervisors that when Leo met with his daughters, they were surprised by how well it went. It was teary eyed and happy. Both of them made a beeline for him. There was lots of hugs and kisses. Leo was asking the girls if mummy was looking after them okay, if mummy was okay. He didn't seem to probe too much with these questions, although he does ask them the question of, is mummy looking after you okay? So maybe that is a probing question. But overall, the supervisors were happy to permit Leo more visits. They were like, this seems like a really legitimate bloke concerned about his little girls.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, back at home, Elaine is becoming more and more distressed about Leo's supervised visits. She's concerned that Leo will somehow con the child services and take full custody of them. I think it's clear to suggest that Elaine may be dropping poison in the ears of the daughters. We know that she begins to write a diary which she intends to give over to the girls at some point, possibly when they're adults. And in it, she talks about the alleged abuse that she suffered. She talks about how evil Leo is and references her time in psychiatric wards too. In the video that Elaine records when she mentioned that God has her children at the beginning of the episode, she says that Serena hates Leo, and she knows this because Serena told her so. Quote, "And Serena hates you. She might have said I love you, but she hates you because she even told me. She told me that daddy hurts you, daddy hits you, daddy kicks you." I don't think she did. It is possible that Elaine is making this up on the camera. It is also possible that she tells her girls how evil their dad is in the hope that they'll try and stay away from him at some point.
Kids are very impressionable.
Kids are very impressionable. Anyway, A custody hearing was to be held on October the 5th, 2006. Leo had applied for full custody of Serena and Sophia. This, to Elaine, was a ticking time bomb. She was convinced that everyone was out to get her. Leo would be able to convince the courts that she was unfit and would take her little girls away from her. There was, I think in her mind, nothing else that could be done. She seems to genuinely believe that Leo is a devil, that he's evil incarnate. Would any mother allow their child to be taken by a literal devil? I don't think so. Again, not trying to justify, just trying to understand.
Yeah, I'm with you.
On October the 2nd, 2006, Elaine and the girls are settling down for the night. The girls are colouring in, just chilling out. We know this because Elaine was filming them on the family camcorder at 8:39 p.m. We don't know exactly what happened after that. All we know is that within an hour of that camcorder going off at 8:39, Elaine has filled the bath and both Serena and Sophia are dead. It is theorised, based on the bruises to the head of Serena and on what Elaine said about bath time for them, that she maybe have told Serena to blow bubbles in the water because she used to do that quite often. And maybe at this point, Elaine held her under the water. Sometime after that, she does the same with Sophia. Pathologists estimated that it would have taken approximately 2 minutes for the girls to die from drowning. I don't necessarily want to be sympathising with Elaine at all, especially at this moment, but to have to hold your two little girls down underwater for 2 minutes, I just want to know what's going on in her head at that point. Does she genuinely believe that this right here is the better option?
I think in her mind, she is completely convinced that what she's doing is justified and correct.
Yeah. I want that to be the case. Do you know what I mean? Because what's the alternative?
I don't see any other way. I don't see how a mother kills their child without being 100% convinced that it is the correct thing to do.
Yeah. At 9:27 p.m., just 48 minutes after she last recorded, the camera comes back on, showing what we heard at the beginning. Elaine, distressed, ranting to the camera. Leo, are you there? Are you happy? Everything's gone. Gone. You wouldn't give peace. You wouldn't tell the truth. How you beat me for 3 years behind closed doors. How you beat me when I was pregnant with Serena and Sophia. You didn't care about our babies. You didn't care about me. You only care about yourself. All you did was hurt us, and you can't survive an idea that you could actually have my children. God's taking care of them now. They're protected by God, thank God, because there's no way I could have them with you.
Yeah, she was completely in her mind. This is the logical step. This is the thing to do.
Yeah. Knowing all that
Which is sad. It's
Yeah.
a sad story.
It is a really sad story. And actually, like, the reason I read that entire thing again was just knowing all this context and this build up. Like, when we saw it and heard it earlier, I don't know, it's just words. But now,
This is why I think, like, doing further research into things is important, because if you read to someone, or to me, the first half of this episode where you just explained what happened, this woman killed her kids, and that was pretty much it. People are, she's evil, brand her evil, move on with your day. Again, not justifying, but I think, like, context is so key to understanding why this happened, what was this woman going through, because at no point am I sympathetic. Like, if you get to the point where you kill your kids, it's very hard to have sympathy, empathy for you. But I am also pissed at the authorities, who the signs were there that something like this was going to happen, and they sort of failed to act.
yeah.
Context is very key.
It's so key. And actually, when I was flicking through our little list of what episodes I'm going to do, and on this one it said Elaine Campione, and then I quickly had a little Google, quick little research. What's this about? And it was mother kills her two daughters to spite her ex-husband. Does she? Oh, let's find out. And then the more research you do, you go, I don't know if she is doing it so black and white.
I think that's the danger with, I think, headlines as well, is that you can sum up the most pivotal part of someone's life in a sentence, when for them it's not a sentence, it's a whole thing that's like gone into this.
Yeah, think how much we've gone through so far, you know, and it's not woman kills her two daughters to spite her husband. How much shit that has gone on in this so far, and it's interesting because we did it again with Catherine Knight. She obviously goes on to murder her fiance and whatnot, but she has a really fucking rough and terrible mental health young youth with her children and stuff. We looked at it with Gertrude Baniszewski when she kills Sylvia Lykin in her basement. You know, other content creator I've seen who's talked about that case just refers to her as the monster the entire episode, and you're like, but she's more than that. Like, yes, she does a horrific thing, but like, she also was a person, and she had a horrific
Yeah, she was
upbringing.
a
And
person with an experience. And again, like, the ends never justify the means, but like, yeah, I think it is very important to contextualize, to understand why these things happen.
yeah. Now, we don't know what she did the following day, but I think it's fair to say that she spent it cleaning up the girls, dressing them, posing them, writing out those funeral instructions, putting them on the bed in a peaceful way that made her feel more at ease. Um, and then we know that she tries to overdose on pills, but fails. I think when she wakes up from the botched attempt, she has a brief moment of clarity, and that's why she calls the police. And obviously, we then know what happens next. But interestingly, you were questioning why she would call the 101 instead of a 999. And I wonder whether it's because I said on the phone she's almost quite groggy on the camcorder as well. Whether, I don't know, she's just not thinking correctly. I don't know. But this is going to get interesting. In interviews, she's hard to read. We know her to be a quiet and soft spoken person, but in all of her interviews, it honestly feels unsettling. She acts as if she has no idea what has happened to her daughters. At one point, she's asked by the police, um, do you have any clue where your daughters are? And she replies that, well, they must be with my husband. Now, they obviously aren't. We know that she's killed them. So, what's going on here? There is an argument that she's trying to either purposefully or she's subconsciously blocking it from her mind, and she's trying to live in an alternate reality in her head. The alternative, of course, to that is that she's lying and she's trying to save her own skin now.
Yeah, I think both are viable, but given her mental health troubles and what she has genuinely believed in the past, I don't think it's far fetched to believe that she genuinely believes that this hasn't happened, that this is another made up thing.
Yeah, I don't know, but to say that they're with her husband, the one person who she's like, absolutely not, like that's the last
Yeah,
person
yeah,
she would
maybe it
align
was
with.
another throw of the dice to be like, he did it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know. Again, that's just a off the cuff thought.
Yeah, I like that. This one has a little more merit. When the officers ask her to describe how the girls died, or when the officers explain their theories as to what happened, Elaine, who was more than happy to talk away to the officers beforehand, starts to clam up and says that she cannot answer without legal representation.
Mm.
This is strange because it implies that she has some idea of what's actually going on here. Could it be that her mind is still telling her that the world is out to get her and that only legal help will be able to protect her? Or is she, again, trying to save her own skin? It's very confusing now.
And my mum has worked in law for God knows how many years. And I remember sitting down, you know, those 24 hours in police custody shows and stuff. I remember sitting down watching one of them with her once, and there was this guy being questioned. And I turned to him and was like, if I ever get arrested for something that I know that I have no involvement in, nothing to do with me, should I answer those questions? And she was like, no matter what happens, always say no comment. Because like, and then she joked and was like, knowing you, you'll say something that will be used to incriminate you.
Yeah.
But like, they are, it shouldn't be the case, but it's quite often that police are looking for you to say something to incriminate you. So even if you're innocent, don't say a word.
I have heard this. If you're innocent, just don't speak. Get a lawyer and be,
They're better at speaking than you are.
Yes, yes. Because I think I'm the same as you. I'm probably in some senses a bit too honest and too nice. And I'll be like, okay, well, I'll try and help you. And then I'll end up saying something that's going to get me Just they'll spin it or they'll
It's just not worth it.
yeah. Now, regardless of how Elaine behaves in his interviews, she is, of course, charged with first degree murder of her daughters Serena and Sophia. At court, Elaine's defence did not try to deny that she killed her daughters. What they were arguing was that she was not in the right mental state when doing the killing, that she was unable to discern right from wrong in that moment, i.e., not guilty by reason of insanity. They argued that her mental state was so broken that she genuinely believed that killing them was the best thing to do. The prosecution argued otherwise. They said that Elaine's vehement hatred of her ex husband Leo was so strong that she would have done anything to spite him, even killing their children. They posited that she knew exactly what she was doing in the moment. This was evidenced by the video recordings after telling Leo how much she hates him and that she would rather the girls be in the care of God than him. And the jury agreed with the prosecution. After a 7-week trial, Elaine was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. That means that she is eligible for parole in 2031. So, what's the deal, do you reckon? Like, they're arguing that it's a reason of insanity, but the thing with reason of insanity is you have to be able to demonstrate that in the moment of the killing, you're not in your right mind, and you cannot tell, and this is the very key distinction here, you cannot tell between right and wrong in the moment.
I think there are aspects to both of the arguments that are true. I don't think she was in the right mental state because I don't think anyone who kills their kids is in the right mental state. So that much is true. I also think for a mother, I don't know. This is me spitballing here as just some guy. I think for a mother to kill her kids, you genuinely have to believe that that's the right thing to do, and it is the only option. Like I can't see any alternative, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But then the video afterwards is very interesting, where it is very clear that part of the motivation, or the sole motivation for killing the kids, is that she doesn't want Leo to have them, which then is. Maybe then she knows killing the kids is right or wrong. I'm not sure, but like it's less about the kids at that point and more about Leo.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think for the most part, this is more about Leo than it is about the girls.
Yeah, but I also don't think she's in a mentally sound place.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's very evidenced throughout this entire thing that Elaine is very much a broken person. Yeah, interesting. Supposedly, Elaine's doing quite well in prison. She's earned a college degree in business. She does voluntary workshops. She's done courses in suicide prevention and awareness, as well as an anger resolution, among many other things. She's doing quite well. She's moved to a minimum security institution in 2015, and since 2019, she's been allowed to go on unsupervised temporary absences from prison. These are things like going out of prison for rehab rather than having it in the prison itself. She can go to an actual doctor's accompanied by someone. She's not going out shopping and doing yoga and stuff. Do you know what I mean? That's not. Because that, again, headlines, media, they went, oh, child murderer is allowed to roam the streets and go shopping. And it's like, no, she's going to a very specific place to do a very specific thing, and then she's going back to prison. So we've heard about the custody battle. We've heard about the allegations of abuse. We've heard about, so the abuse with Leo. So obviously throughout this entire thing, that's hanging up in the clouds, of course, because she's made the accusation. But in court, it's completely dropped because of Elaine's mental health, and how she effectively cannot be used as a trusted witness anymore. So the accusations toward Leo basically get thrown out. They can't do a court case on it because there's just not a lot to go on at all. So as I say, we've heard about the allegations of abuse, we've heard about the psychiatric admissions, the suicide attempts, the delusions. Where do you stand? Was Elaine Campione a calculated murderer looking to punish her ex-husband, or a woman whose mind had become so detached from reality that she genuinely believed she was possibly doing the right thing? Let us know in the comments. Let us know. Send us messages. All that stuff. You know.
That is the question. I don't know. I cannot give you a definitive answer, but I feel like I've laid my points, what I feel, quite clear.
Yeah,
I think there was failures in the system that led this to happen. I think there were signs that something bad was going to happen at some point. I don't think she was mentally sound, but I also can't forgive her for killing her kids.
Of course not. Obviously, hindsight being 2020 and all that, but obviously Elaine has been admitted to hospitals 3 times that we've told about in this story. And as we said earlier, if at any point those children had been taken away and given over to their grandparents to be cared for, and Elaine got the proper help that she needs, possibly with those supervised visits in time, who's to say that she may not have been able to manage her mental health a bit better and those children could still be alive today? Am I blaming the establishment? Of course not. There is clearly a failure there, though, and I think it's right to point that out.
Yeah, it's a doozy. I don't think it's as black and white as I'm sure the story was made out when it first came out.
Yeah, mental. Well, that's the end of that story. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Let us know your thoughts. Honestly, I really do want to know. Drop a comment if you listen to us on your podcast apps like Spotify and whatnot. Drop a review and whatnot. Leave comments if you're watching on YouTube, and drop a subscribe as well. And anything to add, James, before we sign out?
No, that was an interesting episode. One to ponder.
One to ponder indeed. Well, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.